I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done.
I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was.
I'm in agreement with him on this.
First of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting, and I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy.
It was a shockingly civil debate, if that's a thing. Both vice presidential candidates mostly sticking to differences in policy as they squared off over the issues. In a post-debate focus group, an overwhelming majority said they thought that Vance won last night. Here's why.
He's very battle-tested, very ready, and you can just see that he went to Yale, and he's very intelligent, and he reassured a lot of people, I think.
Somebody else.
It was a strong control of the facts. He ran the show.
He remained steady during the whole performance, and I was very impressed with him being very sincere and authentic.
He humanized himself and actually looked like a regular guy.
Joining us now, pollster and communication strategist Frank Luntz. Those were people that you had polled and were talking to. And I found the last comment really interesting because as he humanized himself, indicating how badly he has looked in front of some people with some of the comments he's made. What did you make of how Vance did? And then we will get to Walz.
Well, I actually want to start, and I apologize to your listeners for this voice, but this is what happens when you do a focus group that doesn't end until an hour after the debate. Our participants had a lot to say. Number one, they loved both candidates. In fact, if they could, they would have reversed the tickets and put Vance and Walz on top and the other two on the bottom. Number two is it gave them faith in democracy, the idea that people could sit down, disagree, and do so civilly. But in terms of Vance, they were shocked that the Vance that they've seen up to this point was not the J.D. Vance of last night. Measured, thoughtful, emotional, willing to agree with his opponents, not divisive. The language that they used to describe him tells me that he has been misused on the campaign so far, that he would be far better communicating Donald Trump's agenda and vision and purpose than the attack dog kind of strategy that they've been using up to now. I have to tell you, only twice in my career have I had such an overwhelming movement towards one candidate. That's how significant yesterday was. Not that they were critical about Governor Walz, but they were so shocked at how emotive Senator Vance was.
Right, and because he was coming from this place of being very unpopular when it comes to his personality and the things that he's said. So that's an interesting twist. What about Walz? What did you hear from the panel on how Walz did and what they thought of his comments and his policies?
Now, he got better as the debate went on. They thought that his first 30 minutes that he was stumbling, that he struggled, as I am speaking to you right now. And they felt that he wasn't really as engaged and he was much more defensive. His best moment of the night was in challenging Senator Vance on what happened in the events of January 6th, and most specifically, whether or not Trump won or lost the 2020 election. That said, he did not connect as well because he was much less specific, and they were particularly critical that he was not answering the questions the moderators were posing. And in a vice presidential debate, they expect more from the candidates than to try to duck the questions.
Well, the polling is out, and they're basically even, 49 to 51%. So a lot of people having a lot of opinions, but it is very interesting to note that people felt good about what they saw because it was civil for once, something we haven't really seen over the past, 8 or so years. Frank Luntz, thank you so much.
Joining us right now is former White House Director of Message Planning for President Biden, Megan Hayes, and strategic communications expert, former Republican strategist and pollster Lee Carter. Guys, thanks for coming in. Megan, you called this a pre-Trump era debate. Walz looked nervous, especially off the top. Everyone saw that. The way Jen Psaki described it, her take was, the way she put it is, missing the magic and the organic spontaneity of Tim Walz. What did you see last night?
Yeah, I think he was absolutely nervous. I mean, I would also be very nervous on that stage as well. And then he got into his groove, and I think he did very well. I think the highlights for him were obviously the issues on reproductive rights. I think he was very strong there. I think he pushed back really appropriately on immigration and some other top areas. I do think that his shining moment and where the dials were really high, according to a lot of the polls, were the last question about if he can, say that Donald Trump lost the election. And I think that the independent voters in these swing states, that's what people are noticing. Do they really want someone who can't say that their boss lost the election as the last person in the room when they're making these crucial decisions, during a wartime and during some of these other crises that you face as the president and the vice president? So I think that was a really telling moment for Walz, and I think, both of them did no harm, and I think that, we will all move on to the next major news event in the cycle.
We have all survived, and we will all move on together. And to your point that was a high point, the campaign, the Harris campaign seems to think so. We have new reporting that they're cutting an ad with that moment about the 2020 election question, an ad for that. Lee, some people saw J.D. Vance last night as kind of working to soften some of the sharp edges that are Donald Trump and Trump's message to voters. The Democratic governor of Colorado, who's a surrogate for the Harris campaign, was on with John this morning, and I want to play for you what he said to that idea.
If you're looking for a car salesman, he's your guy. I mean, I think he looked at shifty, he looked at slick. Of course, he's good at what he does. He talks to different groups in different ways, no question about it. But at the end of the day, he failed to say he would side with the American people over Donald Trump.
Lee, you held a focus group last night. What did you see last night?
So I saw that Democrats really didn't believe J.D. Vance. They said he seemed nice, very, very much in line with what we just heard from the governor here. But I think that independent voters and Republicans were refreshed to see a softer side of J.D. Vance. Actually, many people said that they really didn't know what to expect. They listened to him and they said, I appreciate that they can disagree without demonizing. He talked about a lot of issues in ways that resonated. He got away from the abortion debate unscathed, which I think is a big deal because this is the biggest weak spot for Republicans. And so I think overall, J.D. Vance came away with more fans than he went in with. Is it going to change votes? Absolutely not. There was not one voter that I talked to last night that ended up changing their mind, but people had a more favorable impression of J.D. Vance than they expected to.
Favorability. He did go in with historically low favorability. I remember Harry Enton has done an analysis of that. So any improvement to be made there, I'm sure he and the campaign will be happy about. Megan, do you think last night did anything to make a second debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump more likely?
No, I don't think last night is going to change that dynamic. I think that Trump is going to see how things are going in the next couple of weeks before the debate and see if he feels that he needs to go back out there and take another swing at it and to see what he can do. I don't think he will show up for another debate. I don't see why he would do that. He does not like to lose, and he clearly lost the last one, so I just don't see him putting himself in that situation again. But I don't think last night would change his mind on that.
Lee, I want to ask you, especially because you have this insight of this focus group. One statement from J.D. Vance that stuck out had something to do with abortion, reproductive rights. What he said, he was asked about the campaign's stance on abortion rights, and Vance said this.
As a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us.
Earning the American people's trust back on this issue. But Trump's take on abortion rights and reproductive rights includes statements like he's proudly the person responsible for killing Roe versus Wade. Trump says he's done exactly what he intended to do. Why then is J.D. Vance saying he needs to earn back the people's trust?
Well, I think that the Republicans have done a very, very bad job talking about their position here. Their position on abortion is actually not the popular position among Americans. And so they're really fighting upstream. So the way that they've dealt with this has made women feel like they're completely left behind, that they have no rights if the Republicans take office. And so I think J.D. Vance was trying to say here that we need to do better. And if we are going to take this position, we recognize that we need to support women in other ways so that's the best choice. And frankly, it was a refreshing answer to folks that said that many people said this didn't seem as scary as other answers I've heard before. They want to hear that there's more support to women. Does it answer people whose primary, concern is women's rights and abortion? Absolutely not. But again, I think this showed a different side of JD Vance and the Republicans than we've seen until now. And for many people, that was somewhat refreshing and made them feel less scary. Scary was a word I heard a lot before the group started. I'm very scared of what's going to happen if this person gets in office. I'm very afraid of the situation that we're in the Middle East or all of these other things. The end of the night, I heard a lot of people say they felt refreshed, reassured. And so that was really positive.